Alright, Pretender here, back with another Honkai style video. And today I'm here with the full build guide for the other character that is going to be running in 2.6 second half, being the GOAT, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Aventurine. So this video is going to be taking you over his kit and Eidolons, then taking you over his best Lightcones and best Relics along with Ornaments, and then some stat recommendations on the Relics. Followed by that will be some team ideas. I recommend you pay close attention because for each selection for Lightcone or Relic, I will be specifying if it's better for a more sub-DPS slash sustain build or just a pure sustain build, since there are two ways you could actually go ahead and build Aventurine. You can check out this video that will pop up in the info card if you want a more in-depth detailed guide on how those work, but this video will still specify and take you over everything you do need to know. So before I get to the video, you guys can drop a like on the video, hit the sub icon for more videos like this, turn on the bell so you don't miss an upload. I'll have a full build guide for now, every single character coming back or releasing in 2.6. Rappa you can check out, Danheng IL you can check out, Acheron you can check out, and now you're watching Aventurine being the last one. Let's get into the video. So Aventurine is an imaginary character following the path of preservation. His basic attack deals imaginary damage equal to 100% of Aventurine's attack to a single target enemy. His skill provides all allies with fortified wager shield that can block damage equal to 24% of Aventurine's attack plus 320, lasting for 3 turns. When fortified wager is repeatedly gained, the shield can stack up to 200% of the current shield effect provided by the skill. His ultimate randomly gains 1 to 7 points of blind bet, then inflicts unnerved on a single target enemy for 3 turns, and deals imaginary damage equal to 270% of Aventurine's defense to a single target enemy. When an ally hits an unnerved enemy target, the crit damage dealt increases by 15%. His talent: for any single ally with fortified wager, their effect res increases by 50%, and when they get attacked, Aventurine gains 1 point of blind bet. When Aventurine has fortified wager, he can resist crowd control debuffs. This effect can trigger again after 2 turns. Aventurine additionally gains 1 point of blind bet after being attacked. Upon reaching 7 points of blind bet, Aventurine consumes 7 points to launch a 7-hit follow-up attack, with each hit dealing imaginary damage equal to 25% of Aventurine's defense to a single random enemy. Blind bet is capped at 10 points. His technique: after using his technique, one of the following effects will be granted. There is a chance for defense to be increased by 24%, there is a high chance for defense to be increased by 36%, and there is a small chance for defense to be increased by 60%. When the technique is used repeatedly, the acquired effect with the highest buff value is retained. When the next battle starts, increases all allies' defense by the corresponding value, lasting for 3 turns. For his bonus traces, his A2, for every 100 of Aventurine's defense that exceeds 1600, increases his own crit rate by 2% up to a maximum increase of 48%. His A4, when the battle starts, grants all allies fortified wager shield, whose effect is equal to 100% of the one provided by the skill, lasting for 3 turns. And his A6, after an ally with fortified wager launches a follow-up attack, Aventurine accumulates 1 blind bet point. This effect can trigger up to 3 times. Its trigger count resets at the start of Aventurine's turn. After Aventurine launches his talent's follow-up attack, provides all allies with fortified wager shield that can block damage equal to 7% of Aventurine's defense plus 96, and additionally grants a fortified wager that can block damage equal to 7% of Aventurine's defense plus 96 to the ally with the lowest shield effect, lasting for 3 turns. For his Eidolons, his E1 increases crit damage by 20% for allies with fortified wager. After using the ultimate, provides all allies with a fortified wager shield, whose effect is equal to 100% of the one provided by the skill, lasting for 3 turns. His E2, when using basic attack, reduces the target's all-type res by 12% for 3 turns. His E4, when triggering his talent's follow-up attack, first increases Aventurine's defense by 40% for 2 turns, and then additionally increases the hits per action for his talent's follow-up attack by 3. And then his E6, for every ally that holds a shield, the damage dealt by Aventurine increases by 50% up to a maximum increase of 150%. Moving on to the best Lightcone options for Aventurine. So remember, as I said in the beginning of the video, I will actually disclaim which one is going to be better for the sub-DPS and sustain and then pure sustain. Starting it off with the best one of both worlds is going to be his signature Lightcone, which if you take a look at what it does, it increases the wearer's defense by 40%. When the wearer provides a shield to an ally, the wearer's crit damage increases by 40% for 2 turns. When the wearer's follow-up attack hits an enemy target, there is a 100% base chance to increase the damage taken by the attacked enemy by 10% for 2 turns. So this one practically gives you everything you do need. It gives you a nice increase to defense, making his shield even more powerful, and also byproduct increasing his damage because he scales off defense. On top of that, you get a pretty big 40% increase to crit damage when you do provide a shield to an ally, which is really often thanks to the fact that his follow-up attack often refreshes the shield by a little bit, so you can continuously get this effect. And on top of that, you gain a debuff that is going to benefit literally everyone in the game that deals damage because it is vulnerability, so an extra 10% vulnerability off his follow-up attack. making this one the best one if you are running him as a pure sustain, the best one if you're running him as a sub DPS, and then also the debuff on top of that. This one benefits the sub DPS part more, but is still perfect for a actual pure defensive Aventurine meant for just sustaining. Another great option is actually Jeopard's signature Lightcone, which this one is better for the pure sustain of Aventurine because it increases the wearer's defense by 24% and effect hit rate by 24%. You also increase the chance for the wearer to be attacked, and when you are attacked, well, when the wearer is attacked, it increases their defense by an extra 24% until the end of the wearer's turn. So when you do get hit, you have the increased chance, so you can direct damage away from your team and put it onto Aventurine with the extra taunt that this Lightcone gives. And if you do get hit, you get 48% increase to defense, which is higher than a signature Lightcone. The effect hit rate can actually just be ignored. But for a pure sustain of Aventurine, this can actually be his best one, since it does provide a better increase to defense than his signature Lightcone. But besides that, it also gives the increased chance to be attacked, helping it a lot, making this a really good option for pure sustain. Another fantastic option is actually the Concert for 2 Lightcone. This Lightcone is better for the sub DPS of Aventurine because it increases the wearer's defense by 32%, and for every on-field character that has a shield, the damage dealt by the wearer increases by 8%. So this Lightcone gives you a defense increase very close to the signature, only off by 8%. And on top of that, for everyone on field that does have a shield, you gain a 8% damage increase, which also includes him, giving you up to a 32% increase in damage, making this a very nice option as well. Another option for pure sustain of Aventurine is actually the Lando's Choice, which makes the wearer more likely to be attacked, and damage taken is reduced by 24%. So pretty much as it says, you have a higher chance to get increased, so again directing the damage away from your team, and that damage you receive is reduced by 24%, making him even more tanky, allowing his shield to take even more hits. Another option for DPS or sub DPS Aventurine is the This Is V Lightcone, which gives you a 32% increase to defense and increases the damage by the wearer when they use their ultimate by 120% of the wearer's defense. And effect only applies one time per enemy target during each use of the wearer's ultimate. So once again at S5, this gives you a near big increase to the signature Lightcone, so you still can actually just use this as a static for pure sustain Aventurine. And then on top of that, your ultimate only hits one enemy anyways, so you get the big increase to the damage by the wearer's defense, making this a good option for mainly the sub DPS Aventurine because it increases the damage of his ult, but since the stat stick is pretty nice, it can be used as the sustain one. Another good one for the actual sub DPS sustain Aventurine is the Destiny's Threads for Woven, which gives you a 20% increase to effect res, which helps you get CC'd even less. And for every 100 defense the wearer has, increases the wearer's damage dealt by 1.2% up to a maximum damage increase of 48%. So you're getting a big 48% damage increase since you are building defense to get the crit rate from the bonus trace anyways, and now on top of that you're getting damage dealt, so it is very easy to stack up this Lightcone, making it just a practical free damage increase by a really good amount. Plus this Lightcone is free, making it very accessible and a very good option. And the last option I wanted to talk about, note this is very specific, and that is the Trend of the Universal Market. This is, again, note this, only good on Acheron teams. Since he is the best sustain for an Acheron team, this actual strat, if you don't have any that are Lightcones, actually does work a bit. Less on him since he doesn't have a inbuilt taunt in his kit, but it is an option you can use if you do not have the other options. So this gives you a 32% increase to defense, so it's a nice stat stick to defense, and when you are attacked, there's a 120% base chance to burn the enemy, and for each turn, the wearer deals dot that is equal to 80% of the wearer's defense for 2 turns. So the dot can actually do a good amount of damage thanks to the fact that it's defense scaling, and then you're also getting the 32% increase to defense. The reason this is only good on the Acheron teams is because it's the whole trend strat. You throw this Lightcone on your Feixiao, you throw this Lightcone on your Jeopard, they can technically use it better, but it is still an option you can use on Aventurine since preservation characters do have natural higher taunt than anyone else. Well, we ignore the fact that Tingyu always gets hit anyways, but pretty much you get hit, you apply the dot, and that gives Acheron a stack, letting her ult even more. So that's why this Lightcone is pretty much specifically tailored towards using him with Acheron. If you really do not have any other option, but you have this at S5 for some reason, you can just use it for the stat stick. Otherwise, again, this is only tailored towards Acheron. Moving on to the best relic options for Aventurine. So starting it off, for the best one for the pure sustained Aventurine is going to be the 4-piece of Knight of Purity Palace, with the 2-piece increasing defense by 15% and the 4-piece increasing the max damage that can be absorbed by shields created by the wearer by 20%. So the 2-piece gives you more defense, which also directly increases your damage by a little bit, and also making it easier to actually hit the threshold that you want. And then the 4-piece making your shield even more tanky because it can absorb more damage, makes this the best best one for the pure sustained build, but in my opinion, his shield, even without these defense sets, is already so damn powerful, to the point running 4-piece is very overkill in my opinion. So something you could do to slightly add a mix-up in there is doing 2-piece of the Knight of Purity Palace and then doing 2-piece of the follow-up set, since the 2-piece of the follow-up set increases the follow-up attack damage by 20%. And so any Aventurine that is not E6 is gonna have the main damage come from the actual follow-up attack. So any damage you pretty much get off would be mainly from the follow-up attack rather than the ult or the actual basic attack. The ultimate can still do some decent damage, but the follow-up attack is where the main damage would come from for a sub-DPS slash sustain Aventurine. So this one will actually help you amplify that damage a little bit. Same thing with the whole thing is you could do 2-piece of the Knight Palace and you could do 2-piece of the debuff set with the 2-piece increasing damage dealt to enemies with the debuff by 12%. So practically for the same reason, any team you really run him on is going to have some form of a debuff, and since he has a debuff in his own kit, he can actually just make the enemy debuff themselves, thanks to the fact that he can inflict unnerved in his ultimate. So you're able to actually make use of this set and it's going to increase damage. You could also just do 2-piece of the debuff set, 2-piece of the follow-up set for the damage increase you actually get off that. And then the last option, do note this is only an option you should do if you have his Lightcone or you have his E2. If you have him E2 and his Lightcone, it's the best. But if you just have one of the others, you can do this, and that is 4-piece of the debuff set. As I already mentioned, the 2-piece of the debuff set increases damage dealt to enemies with the debuff by 12%, and the 4-piece increases crit rate by 4%, and the wearer deals 8%/12% increased quick damage to enemies with at least 2/3 debuffs. After the wearer inflicts a debuff on enemy targets, the aforementioned effects increase by 100%, lasting for 1 turn. So the reason I say you want to have at least the Lightcone or you want to have at least E2 is because that adds an additional way to gain a debuff, so giving you 2 of the debuffs that you could get, and making it easier to actually get the aforementioned effects increase. So to get the full effect of this actual relic set, you just need one other person to inflict 1 debuff, which is very accessible because so many characters in this game that you use with him is going to be able to inflict a debuff. And with the actual Lightcone, you can inflict another debuff from his follow-up attack to get the aforementioned increase, or if you have the E1, you can get off basic. And this one is going to be the best for his own damage output. This is going to practically just get rid of any sustained parts you get from relic sets and then put the full focus on his actual damage. For the Planar Ornaments, this actually does also depend. If you want him to just be more of a supportive sustained character as well, you could just do the regular, giving him something like Broken Keel, which increases the wearer's effect res by 10%, and when you have 30% or higher effect res, all allies crit damage increases by 10%, and since his talent gives everyone 50% effect res, he's able to just make use of this at all times. Because it also does include him, so you're giving everyone crit damage, and then if you really want to, you could also just give him something like Ageless, which increases max HP by 12%, which is kind of useless on him since he's defense scaling, and when you have 120 speed or higher, you give everyone an 8% attack increase. That won't really benefit him at all because the max HP is pretty useless, and then the attack percent doesn't really help him since he doesn't scale off attack at all either, but it is a supportive thing you can give to having a buff to your teammates. And for another pure sustain Aventurine to get the most defense as possible is you could do the Bellobox set, but it does give the wearer a 15% defense increase. And once the wearer has 50% or higher effect hit rate, the wearer gains an additional 15% defense, giving you 30% defense, but getting the 50% or higher effect hit rate is kind of whatever on him. And again, he is already so powerful at sustain even without all these extra relic buffs that you really don't actually need to get that extra amount. And so if you're going to do that, you're better off just giving him something like Broken Keel. Another option you can do is if you are running him with Dr. Ratio specifically, you could give him the Penacony set, which increases the wearer's regeneration rate by 5%. That is pretty negligible since you don't need it, and increases damage for all other allies that is the same damage type as the wearer by 10%. Since they're both imaginary, you can actually use that. But then the best ones for actual pure sub DPS that is going to benefit his damage the most is the Durin set, which anytime someone on your team uses a follow-up attack, including him, you get a 5% increase to follow-up damage that stacks up to 25%, so stacking 5 times. And once you do have those 5 stacks, you get an additional crit damage increase by 25%. This is going to be best on a follow-up attack team, but he can still stack it up by himself, since if enemies attack a lot, such as the Hule boss, you're able to get a bunch of follow-up attacks stacking it up very easily, but it is still best paired with at least one other follow-up character, and is also going to be the best for his actual personal damage. Another option you can do that has practically no restriction is running Inner Sasado, which increases the wearer's crit rate by 8%, and when the wearer has 50% or higher crit rate, the wearer's ultimate and follow-up damage increases by 50%, in which he could do decent damage with his ultimate, and then the main damage comes from the follow-up attack, so they're both getting increased, making it really good. Thanks to his bonus trace and the actual 8% increase to crit rate that Inner Sasado gives you, you're practically easily getting the 50% or higher anyways, so it makes it easy to use as well. For the main stats on the relics, so it is very dependent on you yourself to actually build them this way. Pretty much the recommended way is to do defense, 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 but you sub out each one for when you hit the 4,000 defense threshold. Once you hit 4,000 defense, he's already going to have his super powerful shield, and on top of that, you max out the crit rate that his bonus trace gives, and so you could sub out each one for a more damaged option. For example, running speed boots is fantastic on a follow-up attack team because you're going to need to refresh, because on a follow-up team that is dedicated, something like Topaz, Aventurine, and Feixiao, that extra 3 you can get from others doing follow-up attacks is going to run out really fast, so you're going to want to actually get another turn to refresh those stacks you can gain. But on a team where other units may not have follow-up attacks, you could just go ahead and use something like defense boots and sub out maybe the body for crit damage or sub out the orb for imaginary damage, since no one else is going to really be needing the stack, so you can just have him on defense boots, get that big defense, and then have the extra damage from one or the other. So pretty much for the body, you can do defense or crit damage. For the feet, you could do speed or defense. For the orb, you could do defense or imaginary damage, and for the link rope, you want specifically defense percent. Once again, defense, 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 and then you sub it out for which one once you do have above 4k defense. You could just go full defense as well, but you're already gonna have such a strong shield to the point you don't really need it and you're just missing out on extra damage, but that is entirely up to you. For the substats, you want to focus on, once again, getting defense to 4k. That is your minimum goal. You want to have minimum 4k defense to max it out and already have a super powerful shield that can practically clear all types of content. Past that depends. If you are running speed boots, you still want a bit of rolls to get the breakpoint. If you are running speed boots, you'll need very little, so you just want to get the 4k defense and then get breakpoint speed, and then past that, it is really up to you. If you want more defense rolls, then boom, you can go ahead for that, but already you are focusing on the 4k defense anyways, and past that, you really do not need more defense rolls. So stuff like crit rate and crit damage is going to be really good, preferably crit damage, since you can already get a bunch of crit rate from the actual bonus trace. And then effect res can also help, because even with the 50% effect res, you could still get CC'd, and so that's how you want to do it. Again, 4k defense, that's your first goal, and then if you're doing speed boots and you want a Aventurine, you want to get him to actually get breakpoint speed, so 134 speed, and then you just focus on crit damage, crit rate, all that stuff. Because his crit rate talent gives him so much, that does not mean you should neglect it. You should still aim to get around near 30% crit rate at base, so you get the 30% crit rate at base, and then plus the additional 48% you can get, giving you a lot of crit rate that you don't really need to worry about more. So just because his actual trace gives a bunch of crit rate, that does not mean you should neglect it. Now for the team building and team ideas section. As he is a sustain, you are really not locked to one specific thing. You can literally use him on any team because that's how broken this guy is. But for some examples, his best team is going to be the follow-up team, so running him with Feixiao and then Topaz, Robin, this is going to be the best team he's on. And then even if you don't, or you're missing some of these, like you could sub out Feixiao. If you do have someone like Ratio instead, you could just go ahead and use Ratio. If you don't have Topaz, but you have someone like March or Mose, you could just put one of them on instead as well. And if you don't have Robin, it really depends on what you have in that situation. You could just throw on Sparkle, you could throw on Ruan Mei. You have a lot of options to work with for the follow-up team. Another really good team where he's best on is actually the Acheron team. So the best Acheron team you can run is him with Acheron, and then Xiaochu, and also Sparkle herself. So you can run something like this. He is the best sustained for the Acheron team. And then once again, it's literally free forming. Whatever you want to use, he can be used literally anywhere, even if he's not the best. You could quite literally just throw him on a dot team as well. So if you wanted to run Kafka, Black Swan, and Ruan Mei, you could just go ahead and do this since he's a sustain. He's not the best on this team, but he's still really good anywhere. He's also a great pairing with Yunli thanks to the fact that she can get hit and then also do a follow-up attack to give him up to 2 stacks instead. So you could do something like Yunli, Robin, and last that could be another Harmony support. So with Yunli, Ting Yun is extremely good, so you can just go ahead and do something like this as well. Again, you are really not locked behind options with this guy. Right now, again, he works on literally any team you want to do. Any team that needs a sustain for you, he can work on there. Even if he's not the best, he still performs insanely well. He will be better in follow-up teams and Acheron teams than others, but he's still really good in those others to the point that you could really just use whatever you want. And yep, that is the full build guide for the Go Aventurine. This guide took you over the kit, Eidolons, Lightcone options for both sustain and sub-DPS sustain, same thing with relics and ornaments, and also the stats with specifications, and then team building ideas. So hope you guys found the video helpful and hope this helped you actually go ahead and build properly. And yep, again, that is the last character for 2.6. This is a build guide for everyone. That's all I gotta say. Peace out.